History is not just a tale of battles and empires, it is also a record of humanity's darker impulses, particularly in how societies have sought to punish and control women. Over the centuries, the brutal imagination of justice systems turned women's bodies into battlegrounds for societal norms and power. From the flames of the stake to twisted devices designed for pain and humiliation, these punishments were not only acts of cruelty, but also statements of control, silencing voices that dared to defy authority. In this video, we will uncover some of the most horrifying punishments that women endured throughout history. Stay with us as we explore these harrowing practices, each more disturbing than the last, and discover the chilling lessons they hold about fear, power, and oppression. Burning at the stake was one of history's most infamous and excruciating punishments, primarily used during the Middle Ages to target women accused of witchcraft, heresy, or moral failings. This punishment became a grim tool of fear designed not only to inflict unbearable suffering but also to publicly demonstrate the consequences of defying societal norms or religious authority. Women were disproportionately subjected to this fate, often scapegoated during periods of crisis such as plagues or famine, when fear and suspicion ran high. The condemned were tied to a wooden stake surrounded by flammable materials and left to die in agonizing flames before large, jeering crowds. One of the most well-known victims of this horrific practice was Joan of Arc, a young French military leader accused of heresy and condemned in 1431. Her final moments were recorded by Jean Massieu, who noted her words, "Hold the cross high so I may see it through the flames." Burning at the stake was justified by authorities as a way to purify the soul or protect society from perceived evils. But in reality, it was a method of reinforcing power structures and silencing those who threatened them. It reflects the intersection of fear, control, and misogyny, leaving behind a legacy of suffering and injustice that starkly illustrates the cost of societal paranoia and intolerance. Forced to wear scold's bridles, the scold's bridle, or brank, was a cruel device used in early modern England and Scotland to silence women accused of being quarrelsome, gossiping, or defiant. This iron contraption encased the head with a sharp metal plate forced into the mouth to suppress speech, often causing pain and injury. Women subjected to this punishment weren't just silenced, they were publicly humiliated. Many bridles were adorned with devil horns or animal features to further ridicule the wearer, making them objects of public mockery as they were paraded through towns. Historian William Harrison described the device in his description of England as a tool to correct unruly tongues, reflecting a broader societal effort to enforce silence and submission. The bridle's design aimed to break the spirit as much as the body, serving as a punishment used in medieval England and colonial America, targeting women accused of being scolds, witches, or immoral. The ducking stool was another method of punishment used in medieval England, particularly for women accused of being scolds or witches. This punishment involved strapping the woman into a wooden chair attached to a long beam, which was then used to repeatedly dunk her into a body of water. Far from being a mere correctional method, it served as a public spectacle of humiliation and control. Women were often dunked in cold, filthy water, risking hypothermia, injury, or even death, as the ordeal pushed their physical limits. Symbolically, the punishment mirrored ancient trial-by-water rituals, where floating signified guilt and sinking innocence, a grim paradox that often led to fatal outcomes. Crowds would gather to jeer and mock, adding a layer of public shame to the already torturous process. The ducking stool was not just a physical punishment. It was a tool for social control and humiliation, making the condemned women vulnerable to both physical and emotional pain. Ripper torture. The breast ripper, also known as the iron spider, was one of the most gruesome and targeted punishments inflicted on women during the medieval and early modern periods. This brutal device was specifically designed to mutilate women, primarily those accused of adultery, blasphemy, or witchcraft. The tool consisted of sharp metal claws that were either heated or used cold to tear the victim's breasts. The process was not only agonizing but also served as a horrifying public spectacle aimed at shaming women and deterring others from defying societal expectations. It was a chilling example of how women's bodies were subjected to extreme violence under the guise of justice. The breast ripper was a tool used to extract confessions or simply as a form of punishment that left deep emotional and physical scars. The Spanish donkey, or wooden horse, was a terrifying medieval torture device that symbolized the brutal extremes of punishment inflicted on women accused of defying societal norms. The device featured a sharp triangular wooden beam upon which the victim was forced to sit or straddle. Heavy weights were attached to the ankles, increasing the downward pressure on the body and driving the sharp edge into the flesh. This resulted in unbearable pain, deep injuries, and often permanent damage. This method was used during the Spanish Inquisition and other authoritarian regimes, particularly against women accused of witchcraft, adultery, or other offenses deemed unacceptable by the authorities. The device was both physically excruciating and psychologically torturous, intended to humiliate and control women by breaking them down both mentally and physically. The pear of anguish, also known as paraspinia, was one of the most grotesque and invasive torture devices ever conceived. Shaped like a metal pear, it was designed to be inserted into the victim's body, either the mouth or, in some instances, other sensitive areas. Once in place, the torturer would turn a screw, causing the device to expand, tearing the surrounding tissue and inflicting excruciating pain. This device was used primarily on women, often those accused of adultery, blasphemy, or witchcraft. The internal damage caused by the expansion of the pear was often severe, with many victims suffering lifelong injuries or even dying from the resulting trauma. The pear of anguish was not just a tool of physical torment, but also a means of psychological humiliation. The act of using such a tool was meant to break the victim's spirit as much as it caused physical pain, further demonstrating the control and subjugation that society sought to impose on women. This device highlights how the punishment of women was not just about inflicting pain, but also about degrading and dehumanizing them. Tormented on the iron chair. The iron chair, also known as the chair of torture, was a device that inflicted unimaginable suffering on its victims, particularly women accused of witchcraft, adultery, or treason. The chair was embedded with hundreds of sharp spikes on the seat, backrest, and armrests. Victims were forced to sit on it, with their bodies pressed against the spikes, while straps were tightened to immobilize them. The agony of sitting on such a device was compounded by the fact that the chair was sometimes heated, causing additional pain as the metal burned the skin. This punishment was designed not only to cause physical pain, but to break the victim mentally as well. Victims were sometimes left on the chair for hours, subjected to intense suffering. For many, the iron chair was not merely a form of punishment, but a precursor to execution, used to weaken the body and break the spirit before death. The devices used during the Inquisition reveals how torture was employed to extract confessions, particularly from women accused of crimes that defied social expectations. The breaking wheel, also known as the Catherine wheel, was a punishment used during the medieval period that involved tying the victim to a large wheel and breaking their limbs before leaving them to die. This device was used on both men and women, but women were often subjected to it for crimes such as witchcraft, adultery, or defying patriarchal authority. The victim's body was secured to a large wheel, and their limbs were broken with blunt instruments. In some cases, the broken body was then left on display as a warning to others. The breaking wheel was intended to prolong suffering before death. inflicting pain not only through broken bones, but also through exposure to the elements. The brutality of this punishment highlighted the lengths to which society would go to ensure that women remained submissive, obeying societal expectations or facing cruel consequences. The breast ripper. The breast ripper, also known as the iron spider, was another particularly barbaric device used to punish women in the medieval period. It was specifically designed to mutilate women, often those accused of adultery, witchcraft, or blasphemy. This horrific device consisted of sharp metal claws that were either heated or used cold to tear at the victim's breasts. The agony caused by this device was unimaginable, with the pain being both physical and emotional. The breast ripper was used to cause excruciating pain while also humiliating the victim, as the act of mutilating a woman's body was a powerful means of control. This device serves as a stark reminder of how women's bodies were not seen as their own, but as objects to be controlled and punished by societal structures that sought to suppress them. The Iron Maiden, a device synonymous with medieval torture, was a symbol of brutality and fear. The device itself was a large, coffin-like structure lined with iron spikes. The victim would be locked inside, the spikes causing injury as they pierced the victim's body. Though there is some debate about the historical accuracy of the device as used during the medieval period, it is often associated with torture practices in Europe. The Iron Maiden was used to punish women accused of various crimes, especially those seen as defying traditional gender roles or challenging societal norms. The device was not just about physical punishment, but about instilling fear and ensuring that women conformed to the expectations set by a patriarchal society. The Spanish donkey. The Spanish donkey, or wooden horse, was a medieval torture device that became infamous for its brutality. It consisted of a sharp, triangular wooden beam upon which the victim was forced to sit or straddle. The sharp edge would cut into the victim's flesh, causing immense pain. To increase the torment, heavy weights were attached to the victim's ankles, putting additional pressure on the body and driving the sharp edge deeper into the flesh. This device was used primarily during the Spanish Inquisition and other periods of authoritarian control. Women were the primary targets of this form of torture, often accused of witchcraft, adultery, or other offenses that challenged the social norms of the time. The Spanish donkey is a horrifying reminder of how women's suffering was often used to reinforce power dynamics and ensure that societal norms were upheld. Throughout history, the cruel punishments inflicted upon women were designed not only to punish, but to break their spirits and silence their voices. These devices and methods of torture were tools of control, used to reinforce societal norms, religious authority, and patriarchal power structures. Whether it was burning at the stake, forced silence with the scold's bridle, or the horrific tortures like the Pear of Anguish and the Iron Chair, each punishment served a greater purpose: to subdue, humiliate, and oppress. These practices, though horrific, left a lasting impact on the social fabric, influencing the way society viewed and treated women for centuries. As we reflect on these dark chapters of history, we are reminded of the resilience of the human spirit and the importance of striving for a world where justice is rooted in equality, humanity, and compassion.